Hey, Jell! Whatever happened to that, Final Fantasy XIV vlog series where you talk about the days you're playing the game? Don't tell me you just suddenly stopped playing. Oh, yeah, funny story about that. So, Monday, we had a guy come out to look at our internet, and they got busy, and he didn't come out until 9 p.m. He was supposed to come out at 7 p.m., which is shortly after I get home from work. And obviously, of course, I'm thinking this guy could show up at any time, so I'm not going to try to play Final Fantasy XIV until after he goes away. And then that happened, and by the time he was done, it was like, screw it, I'm going to bed. And then the next day, I was like, okay, I need to play Final Fantasy XIV before the new characters for Crash Team Racing dropped, and the characters for Crash Team Racing dropped at 7 p.m. that day, because it was based on Greenwich Mean Time. And I've spent the entire past week, as I warned you, grinding for those characters. I have just completed the grind, aside from getting Tawna's suit, but other than that, everything else has been unlocked, and I am exuberant because I have literally waited 20 freaking years for these stupid characters, and now I understand why everyone loves Crash Team Racing. So now, finally, Sunday, after midnight, I can sit down and I can... Oh yeah, and then I tried to play Final Fantasy XIV and I had all these connection issues, and I was like, what the crap, what's going on? Oh right, we got a new router. I'm trying to connect through Wi-Fi instead of wired because the wire isn't long enough to reach to where the router was moved to while I moved the router, and now it's long enough. Point is, I can finally play again. I thought that the servers were congested, which they kind of are, but no, this was something else. This was, you know, like a half-minute of delay between pressing a button and getting an action before finally getting disconnected. Anyway, that's all been resolved. Game's working fine. And so I continued the plot. Darn shame that one of my friends wasn't there because I did another dungeon with a party, which I managed to get into that party much faster, and they had skeletons walking around the area outside the dungeon, so I could just beat on them until the dungeon started. And at the end of the dungeon, we got to fight a Mind Flayer type thing, and that's why it's a shame that my friend wasn't there, because I think he kind of likes fighting Mind Flayer things, Pisco Demon, stuff like that. Beat the crap out of that. That was cool. Very fun dungeon. Liked how that went down. No luck finding any really fun fates. But other than that, continued with my monk quests and messed around with crafting. The crafting system in this game is very interesting. First and foremost, it ties in with the class system. Like, in order to craft things, you have to switch to a crafting class. The game has Disciples of War, Disciples of Magic, Disciples of the Hand, and Disciples of the Land. And the Disciples of the Hand and Land are the crafting and gathering classes, and the way class changes work in this game is you equip the appropriate weapon and you instantly switch to that class. So as soon as I equip a sewing needle, boom, I am now a weaver, and I can start crafting things. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. And, yeah, the way it works is you bring up your crafting list, and you choose the thing you want to craft, and then it brings up this, like, interface, and you use skills in order to actually craft your item. Like, how it works is they have this durability rating, and a completion rating, and a quality rating. And you're trying to balance all these meters. So you click the craft the friggin' item button, right? And your character goes to work trying to craft, and they have a certain success or failure rate depending on their skill levels and stuff. And every time, you know, every time you do this, it decreases the durability of the item. If the durability of the item ever reaches 0, it breaks and you lose the stuff you were trying to craft the item with. So you're trying to do that. And then you can use skills to increase the quality of the item, and other skills to bring back the durability or increase your success rate at doing different things. And, you know, every time you try to use the skill to increase the quality of the item, that still costs some durability, and you could fail, and then it takes more durability, and you have a limited amount of crafting points that you're using as you're trying to craft these items, which go up as you level up that class. And the thing that makes that even more interesting is that, of course, each class levels up individually. Your character doesn't have a level there. The classes have a level. So that means that in order to level up your weaving skills, you just have to weave a whole bunch. And then it turns out there's sort of a auto batch weaving thing you can do, because eventually it started to get kind of ridiculous, where it's like, okay, I need to make 10 hemp cloths. Well, in order to do that, I'm gonna need like 20 hemp yarns. And I'm like, this is gonna take forever just doing this over and over and over again. Oh wait, here's auto-synthesis, I need 10 of these, and I just sit there and watch my character go through the motions to automatically do that, and I'm like, that's a good thing to do when I have to go to the bathroom. So yeah, slowly leveling that up. By the end of it all, though, when I completed that dungeon, I wound up leveling up my pugilist class past the limit for the dungeon, and it had to level me down to get through the dungeon during the boss fight. And so I'm a level 20 pugilist now, and I think I'm level 10 on being a weaver. And so things are progressing along pretty darn nicely. One thing I can safely say, though, I've been watching a ton of videos on the subject. There's actually 2 different videos about what happened to Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. Because if you're unfamiliar, when Final Fantasy XIV first launched, it was one of the worst friggin' games ever. It barely even functioned, and pretty much everyone involved with it got fired, and then other people had to fix the problem. There are 2 videos. First, there's the no-clip documentary, and that one is very professionally produced, and, has actual interviews with the people involved with the game, talking about what happened. That's really nice and all. But then there's the Speakers Network one, which tells it from a player's perspective, and though you're dealing with a guy with a funny accent and only so-so video editing, it is so much better. Honestly, it's a good contrast to getting a little funky on the topic here, I know, but it's kind of a good example of why game journalism sucks, even when they're doing a good job. Because with the no-clip video, they actually get to fly to Japan and interview the people involved with the game, and so they feel bad if they leave out any of the interview they had. And on top of that, they can't, they don't really talk about the game, they don't ask any hard-hitting questions, they just sort of let the people involved with the game talk, and it feels like they just softball the entire thing. Because, of course, you're going to Japan, and you're talking to these people, and they've been nice enough to take time out of their day to speak to you on camera for your stupid documentary about one of the biggest embarrassments in their career. So, of course, you're gonna softball it. But the Speakers Network one, he doesn't have to do that. Because he doesn't have any interviews. He's not under any obligation. He's just telling it from a player perspective, and he can be like, yeah, this sucked, and this was what was wrong. And since he is a player, he knows firsthand what went wrong with Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. and goes into detail from a player perspective. And more than that, it gets really, really interesting when it's told from that perspective, because he explains everything that went wrong and how they had to restructure everything, as well as, like, the cool thing. Because each update did make the game more functional, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, no, this game was completely screwed up because they had, how do you describe it, cut and paste waffle maze labyrinths. Like, you gotta see the original 1.0 maps to understand, but when you see it, you're like, oh, wow, that is the world was just a nightmare. It it had to be destroyed and rebuilt. But the thing that made it really cool was when they made the decision to start working on 2.0 and completely rebuilding the game from the ground up. Apparently, they put a big red dot in the sky that got bigger and bigger with each patch and people started to get more and more worried, and they didn't explain it. Until finally it's like, oh yeah, the Empire is going to crash the moon into the planet. And by the end of it, it's playing creepy music, and you could see that the moon is mechanical, and it's always like almost nighttime, and monsters are spawning in everywhere before they shut down the servers. And the coolest thing is, okay, so they show what happened and how the world all got destroyed, but if you actually played 1.0, then when you moved on to 2.0, amazingly, you got to keep your character, you got a special storyline, and if you actually played through the final mission of 1.0, apparently you got a different storyline for A Realm Reborn than everyone else. Like, slightly different. But, like, by the end of it, you are actually recognized, oh yeah, you were one of the Warriors of Light that went missing. And, like, at the beginning, instead of, you riding into town and being introduced to the town, you're instead, teleported 5 years into the future in, like, the middle of the forest. It's like, that's really cool that they threw out this special little thing for any legacy characters, for anyone who actually stuck with the game through the dark times. Giving them a little extra special something is just the coolest freaking thing. And yeah, just hearing about all that, it was incredibly enthralling. I loved listening to that. And more than that, after having looked into the game and played the game, I now no longer feel bad about the fact that I might wind up roping a friend or two into this. Because even if I do quit, it turns out that the main story campaign is actually really interesting eventually. The general consensus is the story for A Realm Reborn is quote-unquote good for an MMO. And then supposedly Heavensward is one of the best plots in Final Fantasy history. Stormblood, I'm hearing, is pretty good, not as good as Heavensward though, and then I've been tuning into Shadowbringers streams just every now and then, and I get my mind blown every time. Like, every cutscene for Shadowbringers just makes me go, what? Like, they go to some interesting places in this game. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? Even if I do lose interest in this, I wouldn't feel bad if my friends decided to play it, because there's enough interesting things here, and vice versa. I'm pretty intrigued by this game, but I will definitely say I know I'm going to be moving servers at some point. I'm trying to figure out where to, because I don't know if I fit in Famfrit. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I remember overhearing someone mentioning that Lamia is like the crafting server for some reason. I'm like, okay, that's random and weird. And more than that, I have a friend on Leviathan. It's like, if she has like a guild she's actually with, what are they called? Free Company? If she has one of those, then I might want to join that guild or something. I don't know. We need to figure... I need to figure out the future plans for me in this game. But for right now, kind of digging this, and I'm only 10 levels away from hitting Monk, meaning I'm only, I'm only 40 levels away from finally getting Dancer, which is the class I really want, and I'm pretty freaking excited about finally becoming a Dancer. I have high hopes for that class. And if not that, then I've heard the Gunblade class is actually really, really active, and I might enjoy that. I don't know. But, game is still interesting. Still having some fun with this. Definitely looking forward to playing more of it when I'm not further distracted by Crash Team Racing. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Catch y'all later, and, I might be scripting an episode based on the freaking characters from Crash Team Racing that are finally here. I have a lot of words I can say about them, so I figure I may as well say those words, right? Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, catch y'all later. Thank you for listening. See ya.